contrast and what the Green Team means towards addressing this type of stuff?
You know, when I was in office before, the football field at the dump, the old dump, the old trash was coming up through the metal and stuff, coming up through the field, holes forming in the field. The building crashed, so it was condemned by our construction official at the time. So we needed a new place for the kids to play. So somebody suggested Lakeside. Sounded like a good idea. There was a fight with the Board of Education over that. In the end, it was the city's property. We decided to move the fields. They agreed. So the football said, we'll help. We'll cut down the trees and get everything going. It's okay. So I went out there, and Sam Cruz, who was in charge of Parks and Recreation at the time, said, oh my God, you go out, it's a mess, right? So I'm like, I don't know what to do about this, right? I'm like, oh my God, they created a mess. They're telling me we don't have the manpower to do this, and and I went to church that Sunday and heard this sermon, and right now I know what I got to do. So I grabbed my chainsaw, I go out there, and I started cutting up the trees by myself. So I went back to the 15th Street complex at the time. I said, I need somebody to come out here with a dump truck to throw this wood in the dump truck and get rid of it. And I was covered in sawdust and oil and grease, and they were like, oh my God. And next thing you know, there's 12 guys out there. All of a sudden, everybody had time to start working on it. Mm-hmm. So then it got done. I felt, worked with JT on getting things like basketball courts redone. And, we're getting ready to do volleyball courts and all that kind of stuff. So, I coached baseball before, and, all kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. So then, what else about the railroad tracks? How did that project go?
So that went, we got complaints about there being a lot of trash on the railroad tracks. Mm-hmm. So I asked for volunteers. I got about 6 or 7, which was a lot less people than that were complaining. Mm-hmm. But we went out there. One guy brought his own tractor, Dave Summers, brought his own tractor out there, and we loaded up, a couple truckloads of stuff along railroad tracks, and it took a good probably 6, 7, 8 hours.
Yeah.
So the guys from the Parks Department that hit the railroad, were told you can't mess with the railroad. You got to be careful. Mm-hmm. All it took was a phone call to the railroad for them to shut the track down for us.
You just needed a little bit of permission.
All we needed was to call them, and everything was fine.
Right.
They were very cooperative.
No, not very dramatic at all.
It wasn't dramatic at all. So sometimes you get that from employees. You can't do this because of this, and then my response is show me. Mm. And most of the time they can't. Then after a while they stop telling you what you can't do.
And they start
looking to see how you can do.
Right. And then that kind of leads me to this Thursday's Holly City Development Corporation event, their Millville Neighborhood Cleanup Day. And hopefully that can be something similar. I know a couple people who said they're going to bring quite a crowd to help with that.
I certainly hope so.
Yeah.
The more the merrier. The more people we get, the more pride. And then maybe less people start throwing trash out. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes it's not the property owner. Sometimes it is, but oftentimes it's not the property owner dumping the trash.
Sure.
Right? It's somebody else.
Why would they dump it on their own property, right?
Right. People go, they throw stuff out the window still, So it's not the property owner. Unfortunately, we hold the property owner accountable. We just had a recent incident out of business. Mm-hmm. So, of course, it's posted on Facebook. Mm. Code enforcement was already on top of it, but the property owner gets time to do it. You don't go out there and cite the property owner right
immediately
away.
Drop the hammer without giving somebody a chance.
They cleaned it all up, and I posted a picture on that on Facebook. So, a lot of times you see a lot of stuff on Facebook, nobody ever calls the city, and it's, 5 days later, how come nothing was done? Well, because, sorry, I'm not looking at Facebook every day. I got other things to do.
Right. So then we've got these 3 examples, the football field, the railroad tracks, and this upcoming Millville Cleanup Day. In my impression, would the Green Team be something that would regularly address these kinds of tasks?
Well, the Green Team is going to be, we're using UEZ funds for that. So that will be in the UEZ zone. It's going to be 2 people. They'll have a truck. So, they can kind of make sure things are clean. That's the idea of Green Team, right? Clean things up, make sure stuff's working right, stuff like that. We even discussed possibly getting another street sweeper just to use in the UEZ zone so that the other street sweeper can be freed up to sweep the rest of the streets in the city, which, you get a lot of complaints about that. I pay taxes, but you don't sweep my street.
Right.
Or I haven't seen a street sweeper in 2 years. And, we brought the UEZ inside the city. because the Holly City Development Corporation said they didn't want to do it anymore. You know, personally, I think they were a little upset because we wanted to use second generation funds for the sheriff's department to increase police presence. But we brought it in and we saved $50,000 in administrative cost. Now I hear other candidates talking about letting them have it back, but you know, we were told we can't pave roads. Well, that turns out to be false. Bridgeton just got approved for paving roads. We just applied to pave a road. So, you know, there's stuff like that, you know, unfortunately, had I known that 3 years ago, we would have been way ahead of the game.
Right.
But that's not what I was told.
Actually, since you just brought it up, why don't we jump into the street paving? Like, what is the current state of the streets? What have you done? And what are you hoping to do moving forward?
So there was really the only street that got paved in the previous 4 years of this administration was the end of High Street, where it tied into Main, because they ended up doing I don't want to call it a shared service, but they ended up piggybacking off that, and they could do that. So, you know, we paved Wade Boulevard, which is a big, you know, industrial thoroughfare to our other industrial park. We paved that. There's a street, I forget which one we paved, 8th Street. 8th, Pleasant Drive is set to be paved. We started paving roads in Laurel Lake, which in my opinion is a very underserved part of our community. Unfortunately, and I'll put him out there, Commissioner Watson stopped and he said he wanted to save money, which makes no sense. The bond was already issued. There's $186,000 sitting there to finish, Lakeshore Drive. So that stands only half done instead of being all the way done. Why my fellow commissioners won't stand up and say anything, I don't know. But, you know, that is what it is.
Sure. So then you said you're applying for the same type of grant that Bridgeton did, and so you're hopeful that it'll get through. And
yeah, we you know, for paving a road, we want to do Columbia Avenue because the state is actually going to pave High Street. But we can do other in the UEZ zone, and we're looking for it, as Mr. Carty suggested, part of Broad Street. So we're looking into it for part of Broad Street as well.
Okay, so then let's move on to another topic, which I think is quite interesting, having had software development experience in my past, and my father is like an OG programmer. He wrote some of the programs over at Inspira Hospital, or the one that was used in the past, and he helped write a computer program to help my wrestling tournaments move more efficiently. And at the gubernatorial debate on Sunday, Jack Ciattarelli brought up the fact that some of our government systems are still running on DOS, and for some of you younger people, that's basically like letting a dinosaur try and walk across the country. But basically, you also brought up the idea, or not the idea, the fact that you've recently upgraded some of the computer systems in Millville. Can you tell me about that?
The police department computer system was way outdated. So we updated that, and then they had cameras with computers. It just didn't make any sense. It was old. We you know, appropriated the money for that. We appropriated money for new software inside City Hall and upgrades to other computers. So that's a constant expensive battle.
Yeah.
That we are doing, in spite of some people allege that we're not, but we are.
And can you maybe outline how long and expensive that was? Because the way my father was explaining it to me earlier, he wrote the computer program for Inspira in a month by himself. And then when they went to update it, he said they hired a team of programmers and it took them 2 years to do it. So like, what did that look like with Millville?
It's not taking that long.
Okay, good.
I mean, the technology is much more, you know, advanced, and I'd say the skill set is not as rare as it used to be, right? With the advent of more and more people doing it.
Okay, so that's good. Yeah, it's not like reinventing the wheel every time.
Correct.
Okay, good. Another thing you mentioned was the 15th Street sale. Now, when I hear that, I'm like, I've kind of know we may have talked about that before, but could you spell it out for me? Okay,
so we had a warehouse as well as an office complex and garages on 15th Street.
Yeah.
So we looked at it and we said there's rail access. That's valuable, right? It doesn't do the city any good, but it's valuable for businesses. So we decided to market it, and we did it successfully. And we sold that property for $6 million, I believe. So, and then we got another property that we're using and still kept the office complex. So, and in fact, they just asked us if they could expand and build another warehouse in that area. So we're looking at that. So that was good. Now, what that did was give the city $6 million.
Right.
Now, as you know, the employees hadn't had a contract for many years, right? They were out of contract. And this is an unfortunate thing, and I don't think this is the best way to spend money when we sell real estate, because we only get to sell that real estate one time.
Oh, yeah. We talked about that in the last interview.
Right. So there's a thing in the budget called fund balance. So that's the amount of money that's left over at the end of the year. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the last year, there was $600,000 left, which isn't a lot. So the end of this budget year, there should be $3 million. But remember, we sold a property for $6 million. Now there's only going to be $3 million. So that $3 million went somewhere, right?
Yep.
And a big chunk of that is going to employee contracts. And that's because there was nowhere else to take it from without raising taxes, 40 cents per hundred, which is
insane.
Impossible. You wouldn't even be able to do it. The scary part is, and that's why it's so necessary to keep going with economic development, because that $3 million is going to be exhausted in another year and a half.
Right. You're basically talking about wealth generation instead of just...
You need to generate wealth. So when I hear people say we don't want warehouses and we don't want this and we don't want that. In fact, when they were building Livoni, which is basically slicing and packaging high-quality Italian meats, somebody complained that the dust particles were going to cause cancer. And a bunch of people got in an uproar. It was like, there's not a house for a mile.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
that's
plus,
exactly...
have you ever been to a deli?
That's exactly where my mind was going, is that there's so much land out there. Like, if you just kept it over in that section, there's not really much to worry about, right?
Yeah, well, the thing is, it's all one big lot, so when you do something, you have to notify everybody within 200 feet. So the 200 feet of the lot. So even if that building is a quarter mile away from the end of the lot, you're still going to have to notify them.
Right.
And it is an industrial park. I mean, it's been an industrial park for years.
Sure.
So, but there's always controversy with any decision.
Yeah, everybody's got an opinion about
Everybody
everything.
has an opinion.
Sure. And then I think we might have touched on this very briefly at the beginning of the conversation, but there's a recurring conversation about marketing of Millville, where not only do we want to have more positive messaging, but sometimes people just simply aren't aware of all the things that are going on.
Well, correct. And you have a lot of... There's a couple problems with this. First of all, the marketing contract got delayed because my fellow commissioners didn't want to do it. So now we're going to be... We did decide to do it under UEZ zone funds.
What was the conversation about why they didn't want to do the marketing contract?
They didn't want to hire the guy that was doing it. I don't know. He does great work. You can look at his work on the website when he does interviews with different businesses. And that's the kind of thing that, we kind of concentrated on, is go talk to the businesses, get their videos out. The businesses love it. When other businesses see it, it draws other businesses in, and it has a spiraling effect, right? So there's other stuff that can be marketed, but, one of the big problems we have is all these individual groups do their own thing, and nobody knows what the other guy's doing.
Yeah.
And we do have a calendar, but if people don't tell us, right, you can't, it doesn't magically appear on a calendar without someone knowing about it and putting it on there.
I don't want to put anybody on blast because I'm trying to build something going, but just this past week, there's a certain group of people that are trying to fight for their concerns at City Hall or whatever.
Sure.
And just by walking around, I was like, so do you know so-and-so over at the other place? And they're like, no. And I was like, wait, you guys are calling yourself this sort of group or entity, and all I had to do was walk down the street for 20 minutes and figure out that you guys aren't talking to each other. So it's not just about, I don't know, City Hall not listening or not knowing what's going on in the city. Sometimes the individuals in the city need to start talking to each other.
Exactly, but a lot of times you find out there's competitions for funds, there's competitions for resources. Sometimes it's people are doing the same event on the same, events on the same day. Why? Right?
Because there's no coordination.
Because there's no coordination, and that makes it very difficult.
Yeah.
If everybody coordinated with somebody.
As if there was
a
central place where people...
Again, should that be the city's job? Should it be the Holly City Development Corporation's job? Should it be the Chamber of Commerce's job? I mean, it's only a matter of exchanging calendars. It shouldn't be.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think it's that complicated, but it gets complicated very fast.
Have you ever heard of Google? I heard they have a calendar service.
They have a calendar service, and you can search for events and stuff. Yeah, they do have that.
Well, I mean, I'm sure they're aware, but it's really about that. Like, are we sure we're all talking to each other and
we're
coordinating?
Not. We're always not. That's for sure. That's been a problem for years, and unfortunately, it continues to be a problem.
Well, hopefully, somebody or some of us will start coordinating that and get a little bit more on the same page.
Well, there's only one of me. That's all I can say.
Oh, and there was also an aspect to that where I think you said there's only one RFP for the marketing.
For the marketing, there was only one RFP. So, one response to an RFP. An RFP is a request for proposal. So we opened it up, and only one company responded.
Okay, so just for people who are like probably my age and younger, what exactly does that RFP process mean? What does it look like? All that kind of stuff.
The RFP shows you what we want. For example, there's a trivia book here. We could say we want to buy 1,000 trivia books, and we post it, and people will respond and say, "Okay, I'll sell you the trivia book for the marketing's more complicated, but for this X amount of dollars." Well, if you don't respond, we can't buy it from you. Right. So if you're the only guy that responds, you're pretty much going to get it. You can say no, we're not going to award it to anybody, but that doesn't make any sense to me for certain things. So we put it out. We hear about, there's all these great companies. Well, they didn't respond.
Yeah.
So what do you want me to do, right?
I think if I'm not mistaken, the county is starting to put on little classes to help people in the community realize that that's what's going on, and then they can be walked through how to fill out the request for, or respond to the request for proposal and all that.
Well, I don't know if the county's doing that or not, but I mean, I think a savvy business person would try to learn that on their own if they're going to be successful.
True.
I don't know if we need to spend county resources for that.
Right, as in sometimes you got to learn to help yourself.
Yeah.
Too.
I mean, I can tell you how to do it, and then and then maybe I don't tell you need $1 million insurance policy, and I wrote the, and then so what? Right? Yeah,
it's not going to work just because you were given a 30-minute class.
Yeah, a 30-minute class is not going to teach you everything you need to know. I mean, maybe, it's nice it's happening, but I question why the county would be involved in that when we have so many other issues in the county.
I could be mistaken, but I thought I saw something like that.
I know the library does things. The Holly City Development Corporation gives classes, So I think they're the places to have that stuff if there's going to be any government or quasi-government agency involved.
Yeah. Then another thing I saw in our correspondence was facade grants. Can you unpack what that's about and how effective that is?
Sure. And facade means the front of the building, right? So there's $20,000 grants, not loans, grants available for businesses in the UEZ zone. They can get a grant if they're going to improve the front of that building for $20,000. So that's basically that simple.
So when I hear people on the street talk about the boarded up buildings and all that, would that apply? Yeah. So there is something available.
There is something available.
And how difficult would it be for somebody to apply for one of those facade grants?
They're not that difficult. I mean, they're pretty simple. They can contact the administrator. They can send them in the right direction to get those grants. Okay. So whoever owns the building would apply for that grant? Right. And some of the buildings, you're going to need more than $20,000, but that's $20,000 towards it. Yeah, to at least get started. Yeah. I heard somebody say, you could even just paint some of those boards or, I don't know, put a little mural on it, and maybe that would do something, and hopefully that would not cost $20,000. That's an option. Yeah. Another topic we talked about was the sewer plant through the CCUA and the county jail stuff. Do you want to unpack what do you mean by all that? Okay, so if you look at our sewer plant and the CCUA, a while back the CCUA there was somebody who wanted to privatize that. So what that means basically is you're selling it. You're going to get a big chunk of money, and somebody else is going to run your sewer plant. Right. Our sewer plant is doing very well. So I can see where that would be a target. And at the beginning of this term, I was approached about that, and I sent an email to the department heads of both the water and sewer plant that I am not ever going to do that. there is one candidate running, and I'll leave it up to the people out there to figure out who, that wanted to privatize the CCUA. So they can do their homework. It's a site called Sewer Watch. It's an old page. They can find it, and they can look it up, and they can figure it out. What was the other one besides the sewer plant?
The county jail.
The county jail. So, again, that was a project that was ready to go, and it was stopped. And there's a candidate, again, running. Same candidate, so you can do your research on that and find out who did that and how much county money that wasted. Millions and millions of dollars. It was under construction, and it was stopped. And now they're looking at partnering with another county, and they actually formed a new authority that will have the power to tax all the citizens in the county to pay for it.
I heard that's with Camden County.
Yes.
And so the concern there is that an unelected board is now in control of a lot of tax decisions and all that
Absolutely.
Yep. And then, since we're on the topic of other candidates, do you want to unpack maybe the idea of some of the suggestions candidates have and how they might sound good in theory, but maybe sometimes they're not applicable in practice?
Well, like, you have some candidates that say, we're not going to allow any more Section 8 housing. Well, you know what? You don't have the power to do that. We're going to put a moratorium on affordable housing. No, you're not allowed to do that either. It'd be great if you could, but you're not going to be able to do it. And and there's other things I see. Like a lot of people are just like, hire more cops, all our problems will disappear. Well, they're not going to disappear. I mean, you can maybe more deterrence, but until you start locking criminals up and getting rid of this bail reform stuff, which I've talked about before, and it costs a lot of money, right? So another one is hire a full-time economic development director. Well, that sounds great, and I'd love to do it, but to get somebody decent, and I don't mean top of the line, right? Right now, our economic development is being shared with our administrator, and he'd like nothing more than to either have one job or the other, because his schedule is crazy. But you're looking at $120,000 every year. You're looking at another $40,000 for health benefits and other benefits. So you're at $160,000. Now he needs a budget, which is probably going to have to be another $120,000. So now you're at $360,000, $380,000. So you're basically looking at another 2 cents on the tax rate forever, right? To have that position. So that's easy to say.
Can we really afford it?
Right, but when it comes down to the practicality, how do you afford that? And every time you hire an employee, you basically can figure it's $100,000. Right. So you hire 3 employees, there's 2 more cents, and I'm willing to pay it until you get your tax bill, and it's going up a couple $100 this year, a couple $100 next year, and then the next thing well, maybe people that can leave do.
Is there a way to think about that in terms of overall economic development, like it's a long-term investment type thing?
Well, that's correct, and you know what, that's why you need to do what I have been doing with the economic development, with getting this land developed, getting ratables in, so that you can pay for this other stuff. And it's not a matter of doing one at a time. You have to work on several things at once. I'd love it if we could just get everything built and then we'd have money to pay for everything.
Yeah.
But, you need economic development to continue to get these projects in. But we've been very successful, and you'll see a groundbreaking next month on a big project. So we've been very successful in getting this land sold and getting it stepped towards development.
Right. So once that comes through and maybe some of that money comes in, then you could do like an economic development centralized person.
Previously we've had people inside. There was the MDC, and the Holly City, the MDC was for economic development. But there they were paying somebody $70,000 a year, and that was basically concentrated on High Street. Well,
yeah.
Do I have to say anything else? Because look.
Yeah. And something you touched on there, which is another social media conversation that was happening the other day. When you talk about the crime and the bail reform and that's not really on the city commission to deal with directly, because if the laws don't change, then you don't have anything to do with it. That also relates to what I hear regarding the off-road vehicles, the ATV, whether or not people can, or not people, the police can actually pursue them and all that kind of stuff. It brings up the idea that really need to start paying attention to the gubernatorial candidates and their AG picks.
Well, that's very true, because that's going to, anytime something goes wrong, I think there's a tendency to blame the politician that you can get at.
Yeah.
Which is us, right? You go to a county meeting, there's nobody there.
Yeah.
One, two, three people there, right?
I've been to several.
How many people are there, right?
Unless we're talking about the middle mile broadband project.
Not many, right?
Not many, yeah.
So, you tend to come to the commission meeting and vent your anger and frustration, and I get it, and I know that's part of the job. But you're right. You need to pay attention to the other lawmakers. You need to pay attention to the governor. They're going to appoint your judges. They're going to change your rules and pick the attorney general. It's going to basically make the attorney general guidelines that the police have to follow.
Right. So basically, sometimes people like to focus on the person right in front of them. But
I'd like nothing more than to pull those guys over and lock them up. I would say do it in a second if it was up to me, right?
But your role is clearly defined, and if you want to attack the issue that's most pressing to you, you got to figure out the right person to talk to.
Right, you got to attack the problem. You have to attack the people that can. There's things we can fix as a city, and there's things that unfortunately we are beyond our control.
Sure.
So, and we've urged people to enact stronger laws but it basically falls on deaf ears and trim.
Right. So, we've got quite a bit of time left. Is there anything on your mind that you haven't hit on yet?
Well, we get back to that, incumbents saying they're going to do this and going to do that, and that is kind of a problem, because, it makes it, I sit here and try to defend my record, which I think is pretty good. It makes that easy for them to attack if they just look something up and say, okay, I'll do that here, or this is what I'm going to do. And then people don't know that they can do it. Or they don't know, and the general public may not know that they can't do it.
So it becomes sort of like a form of misinformation.
Yeah, and unfortunately and they'll pay for that later if they get elected.
Because they won't be able to actually do it.
They won't be able to do what they wanted to do.
Right.
But, they should be a little more careful about what they say they're going to do, and a lot of us want to do a lot of things.
Yeah. Just a quick note, we do have a bit of time left, so if people want to call in, it's 856-696-0092, and I think somebody called in like a minute or two ago, but it might have gotten missed. But we're happy to take the call now that we have plenty of time left.
Sure.
So if anybody wants to call in, that's cool. But yeah. So I'm looking forward to the Millville Neighborhood Cleanup Day on Thursday, because it brings up a bit of the concept that, I can run around the county and try to talk to everybody, and we can talk in circles forever. But sometimes it feels better to just get on the street and actually help out and do something.
Yeah, it's a lot of times that makes a big difference. When people get together and do that, they start get a pride, sense of accomplishment, right? And try to keep it clean. And again, if you see something like that, call the city. Don't just post it on Facebook and hey, there's a tree in the street on Facebook. Really does no one any good,
right?
Until somebody who works for the city sees it and they say, oh, well, okay.
Yeah.
We have a lot of people running, a lot of people with varied backgrounds. So, and there's so many people running, it's going to be a really interesting election.
Yeah.
I think, because I have no idea where anybody stands as far as chances to win, because the vote's going to be so spread out.
I barely have any comprehension of it, because I've only been at this for a couple years, and even if somebody like yourself who's been involved for quite a long time, 19 people for 5 seats, anybody could say something. Somebody could fly a plane over a football game.
Somebody could do that.
I've seen crazier things in my time.
And maybe you'll see some more crazier things. You have to distinguish yourself somehow.
Sure.
So, but people are going to vote for 5. Well, most people are going to vote for 5 people, and that's really going to spread the vote out. And if you,
you know what?
you don't have to vote for 5. You can vote for 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5.
You know what's also interesting is this concept that's been going around. Like, I try to proactively go out of my way to meet people and talk with with the candidates and all that kind of stuff. And not to be too negative or critical, but there's something to be said about, like, fundraisers are not meet and greets. As in, if I have to give you $25, $50, $250 to hear your campaign speech, well, then I'm inherently supporting you, as opposed to just somebody talking to me at a public event that anybody could go to. And why don't you explain how you're working on that?
So, we're looking at doing some meet and greets. When I say we, I'm talking about myself and maybe Greg Wire, and we were looking at doing one for everybody, but I believe you have something coming up that's going to try to cover that.
Yeah, so it's developing day by day. It's on October 11th at the Glasstown Brewery. I haven't finalized it yet, but that would be the idea. It's just all 19 candidates are invited. Like, bring your own tables and your pamphlets and whatever it is you want to do to politely show up, shake people's hands. You give your campaign pitches. They can ask you questions. You can direct them to your websites or whatever it is you want to do. That way, people can all show up to one place at one time and not play guessing games about, if I ask the wrong question, am I going to be escorted out? And if I don't donate $25 to the cause, am I going to be able to hear, what your stance is on the NABAV extension?
Right. It's funny. I'll tell you a story about political. Like I mentioned before, I was the chairman of the Political Action Committee for one of the unions I was in. So at the time, we wanted to talk to Governor Christie. So we said we want to meet with Governor Christie. Now, we had met with him before at fundraisers. So they were like, okay, we'll make a donation and come to this fundraiser, and you can speak with him for a minute. That's about what you get. We used to call it FaceTime, right?
Right.
If I go to your fundraiser, I get maybe 45 seconds to make my point. So that's what we would do. But in this case, we said, well, we'd love to do that, but you guys instituted this reform, and we've already given him the max amount. So they said, we'll call you back. So this is a great story. So they called us back and said, okay, instead of donating to him, donate it to A, B, C, and then you can meet the governor at this fundraiser over here.
Yeah.
So, a lot of times in the upper echelons, and I get it, those people are a lot more busy at the state level and federal level than, we are in Millville. I mean, they just started. There's just so many constituents, right? But here in Millville, there's a lot of a big fundraising going on. And I previously said that I wouldn't take any donations, but I've had to change that stance. And the reason I've had to change, when I looked at Team Millville's fundraising at $20,000, I can't fight big guns without big guns.
Right.
I mean, that's just the nature of it is. If I don't spend any money or I don't get any money to spend, then how am I going to combat whatever they do?
Right.
Right. I won't be able to do it. And neither will other people.
It's just the nature of reality, right?
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Once one person goes that way or one team goes that way, then other people don't have any choice but, if they want to win, to try to go that way.
Yeah, that's a fair concept that I've picked up over the years, whether you're like playing a sport or in college or whatever. I saw this documentary a couple years ago on Netflix, and it was about how all the college kids, whether they were on the football team or studying, they were all taking their Adderall and ADHD medication, not necessarily because they needed it, but because it helps them focus. Now you can stay up all night and study for the test. Or now you can run 10 extra laps on the football field. And it makes you start to feel like, not that I'm condoning taking drugs to study or whatever, but it makes you feel like if you're not doing that, then you're fighting at a disadvantage.
Or you have to be able to compete.
Right.
Right, and compete effectively. Otherwise, and really, I wanted to retire after this. I'm 64 right now. I didn't want to But when I look at the money coming in from these other projects, and I really look at the field is big, but I don't think it's deep, to be quite frank, right? You have a huge field of people, but you have not a lot of experience or a lot of business experience, and there's a reason for that, and a lot of that goes back to social media too. You get attacked for everything.
Yeah.
And I talk to people that are smarter than me, and ask them to run, and they say, you're an idiot. So I guess they were smarter than me.
Right.
Why do I need all that aggravation?
Right.
So, well, don't you care? I care, but I don't.
Right, you don't want to put yourself
up to all this stuff.
I mean, I think about that too. And then I also think about from a humble or humility way, like when somebody asks me to run for school board in Vineland, and I'm like, okay, let's talk about that for like a day or two. Where do I even start to pretend like I know what I would be doing on the school board? And I started asking basic questions like, well, how does the school board even function? And, it turned into this rabbit hole of, okay, well then I'm going to have to meet so-and-so A, so-and-so B, so-and-so C, start developing that relationship. And then what pieces of literature do I need to read about the dynamics of how, is a school board member allowed to visit the school unannounced? Or what does modern day curriculum development actually look like? Because when I used to teach, I used to tutor private lessons. I would teach them whatever I wanted. And I don't mean that in a sense of willy-nilly not caring about it.
We could use whatever methodology you needed to do to get them to learn the material.
And I would customize and be like, okay, you want to learn Green Day songs? Which song? Okay, I'll go home, I'll listen to it, I'll write it down on paper for you, and then I'll think about all the intricate different ways of how to practice it so that you can do it. But if I tried to go off the cuff like that in the school system, I'd probably be fired in 22 seconds.
Yeah, I have a question for you.
Sure.
So you've been doing this have all the candidates responded to come on your show?
Absolutely not.
So that, the ones that haven't, that says a lot about them too. Either what are they hiding, or what don't they know that they're afraid they're going to expose? And that's unfortunate for the voters.
There's that, but then there's also, I'm trying to be fair as possible. Who is Steven Soloff? You know what I mean? It's like, why am I talking to this guy who just popped out of nowhere 2 years ago?
Well, I'll talk to anybody that wants to talk to me. Right. So I don't know why the average person, the average guy running for office wouldn't do that. I mean, by now, they see you're informed the vote. They see you talking to different people. Mm-hmm. So I would hope they would come on your show, come to your events, and be a little more transparent.
Here's another point that's been going through my mind. While I did just play devil's advocate against myself and say, well, who's Steven Soloff? Why am I talking to this random guy? The other point to think about is, well, Steven Soloff was the average voter 2 years ago who kind of self-appointed himself as like a press outlet thing or whatever. And so now I'm like a hybrid in between. I'm still kind of just the average voter. So if I'm coming up to you on the street in the sense of a average voter, and you're not willing to talk to me? Is that how you represent yourself to the average voter? Like, I'm not going to ask, or I'm not going to answer a pressing question about what's going on at the county level? That's weird.
It's a little strange.
Yeah. But it's something to think about. I can understand both sides of that perspective. But we've got about 2 minutes left. Anything coming to mind that you want to wrap up with?
Well, the baby show's coming up Saturday, so if you're,
what's the baby show?
The parents bring out their babies, and we have a contest.
Who's the cutest baby?
Yeah, who's the cutest baby? Yeah, and this year I'm a judge for the first time.
So wow!
I've been to it before. This is the first time I'm a judge because I have to be in charge of Parks and Recreation when it's time to have the baby show. I
might go to watch how you handle yourself at a baby show. Because that sounds more interesting than the babies.
Well, I have 2 kids. They seem to turn out all right. So I don't think I hurt anybody's feelings or anything.
Yeah. Well, then we've got about 1 minute left for everybody listening at home. This, again, is Joe Sooy, who's running for re-election, and Millville City Commissioner. And next week, I'm going to have Victoria Lodes, who's running for re-election on the Cumberland County Commissioner Board.
Ask her about Knob Avenue when you have her.
Okay. Only because you asked me.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
So again, this is Inform the Vote Radio Hour here at WVLT, Cruise 92.1 in Vineland. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
This is Brian Lankin, owner of Al Shoes at 639 Lannis Avenue in downtown Vineland. We carry shoes for the entire family from size 0 all the way